Welcome to the Sacred Birthwork and Business podcast, where sacred birthwork meets soul-aligned business. I'm your host, Anna Lundqvist, a former midwife, now sacred birthworker mentor, business coach, and the founder of Sacred Birth International. My intention with this podcast is to inspire you to follow your birthworker calling and to step fully into your power and purpose and unapologetically claim your place as the feminine leader that you were meant to be in your life and community. Let's reclaim sacred birthwork, let's reclaim sacred business, and let's do it the feminine way. Let's begin. Welcome back to episode number 3 in this introductory series to get to know me and my journey. Today we start in Byron Bay, Australia, where I'm living. I am a midwife and I'm loving my life, but it's in the middle of the pandemic. It is 2021 and I'm getting this strong inner knowing that it's time to return to my homeland. After being abroad most of my adult life, living far away from my blood family, I felt that it was time to return. It wasn't a specific thing that made me want to move back to my homeland. There were several things for sure, but it was just this inner knowing. I didn't know why. I just knew I had to. It was time. It was coming. So I wrapped up my life about 3 months from the decision of that I am returning to that I actually booked my ticket and left and returned to Sweden. It was a beautiful time where I traveled around and met all my friends around my community around Australia, where I'd been living in different places and held retreats and gatherings and just kind of wrapped up my life over there. It was kind of this perfect time because I wasn't in a relationship. I didn't have a permanent place to live. I was already moving more and more online as the spiritual midwife, and my business that was the natural birth course, the nourishing postpartum course. I also had by then started the village, my online community where maiden mothers and magas gather, birth nerds, birth workers, pregnant mamas, postpartum mamas, women taking my courses, and so on and so forth. And so I had this online presence both on Instagram as well as having my platform with my online courses happening. So I was already doing a lot online at that point. I had my podcast, the Natural Birth Podcast. But of course I was doing this, home birthing as well. And I did this in-person circles. I had my feminine leadership mentorship that I was running as well online, but with people I knew from real life, from my circles. And so I was wrapping all of that up and was very optimistic returning to Sweden. I felt very enthusiastic. It felt like I was pulled there. It was from, the love of wanting to go back. It wasn't like I was leaving something I didn't love, because I absolutely loved and adored my life in Australia. So it was just this feeling of like, I love this place, but I also love the feeling of, following the intuition that I'm going to love being back home in Sweden. And I had a vision. If you listen to the last episode, I said, 2019, I had a strong feeling that I wanted to, like, quote unquote, go off grid. Like, I'm not totally off grid for sure, but just going more rural. I wanted to have land and grow food and become more self-sufficient, more just feeling more free. And I didn't know where that came from, but I had a strong urge to do that. And I then felt in 2021, that's going to be back in Sweden. That's why it hasn't happened in Australia yet. After I had that strong feeling in 2019, it didn't happen in Australia in 2021. In the middle of the year, I was like, okay, it's time to return to Sweden. And so I was optimistic. I was going to go back. I was going to find my home, my piece of land. I felt like, it's all going to work out. I didn't know exactly what it looked like. I can't really remember if my idea right then and there was that I would go like full time online. I don't think so. I don't know what my plan was, but it felt good. And I was just following that because that's kind of how I've lived my life, just following that, the pull, the intuition, the gut feeling, the inner wisdom, without actually fully having a plan or knowing what that looks like. I usually just go with that and trust it. And so I returned. I came back to Sweden in, I think it was mid-July. So I got a couple of weeks of summer. And then one of the coldest August happened. And that's the thing with Sweden. You just don't know what kind of summer you'll get and what kind of weather you'll get. And that started my journey back home rough because I was used to the sun after years of living in the sun in a warm tropical country. It was hard to adapt to a cold summer in August. And then just autumn hit me hard. The first year back in Sweden was tough. I was very much embraced back in Sweden, and I found a midwife that I worked with as a team. I, not being registered midwife in Sweden, kind of worked like her doula teammate, midwife doula teammate kind of thing. Um, I was still called the spiritual midwife at that point. So, kind of being the spiritual midwife to her, kind of more being the registered medical provider. And we had that year together. And I also took clients on my own where I was a midwife doula. So, taking on that doula part and not the medicalized or the medical responsibility of a midwife, as I wasn't legally allowed to work as a midwife in Sweden, as I wasn't registered in this country. And so that year, I took on a lot of birthing clients as I'd done before, just kept on doing that, just in a different format. Well, truly, just as actually what I love. Because truly, I never, as I said before in the previous episode, I never loved doing the medical stuff and all the documenting and being like, again, like the obstetric nurse kind of thing, where you felt more like a secretary and, you know, obstetric nurse doing observations and all the medical stuff. And I loved being the true essence of a midwife, like being with woman, um, giving her my presence, the space holding, the comfort measures, the support, the loving support, the emotional, physical, spiritual support throughout her rite of passage. And that's what I brought to my clients in Sweden as I returned. So I got busy. I took on anywhere from 2 to 4 families a month during that year, which, is a kind of normal workload, I guess. Being on call for that whole year, not really having any breaks. As I was returning to Sweden, I definitely wanted to make sure that I was earning money and establishing myself. And so taking on that as this at the same time as continuing the podcast and of course having my courses and my online activity, but I wasn't at all really focusing on that. That kind of ended up being on the back burner, just a side project. And I guess it was just a side project for the first really 3 years of the spiritual midwife when I went online. Um, and that was fine. Like that workload is fine. But it was really taxing on me because at the same time, I was navigating returning to my homeland, weaving new and old connections and figuring out, where I belonged, coming back to a very dark, cold country for the winter. By January, I thought I was clinically depressed because I was just so not used to the darkness. I was so not used to this climate. And it was a totally new culture after living in the countryside, this vibrant community kind of place like Byron is, where I had so much friends and I just popped out and went to the farmers market or the beach or to singing devotional singing at a kirtan or bhajans or going dancing, and I would meet my community and my friends there, and also not even planning to meet them. It was just so rich in community, and it really nourished my feminine soul, having that connection and also being so close to the land every day, walking barefoot. I'm such a nature child. And I ended up coming back to Sweden, going into an apartment in the capital city, Stockholm. It was next to a huge national park, and that was my saving grace, but it was still an apartment. And I don't thrive in an apartment. I do feel like a caged animal, and it really affects my mental health. And so that year, the work was amazing, and I obviously love attending the birth portal and serving women and their families. But being on call was taxing on my nervous system that already was really under pressure with my personal life of this massive move, integrating back into a new culture, really struggling being in an apartment, being in the darkness. And so that year was really a dark night of the soul for me. I had a hard time emotionally and personally. So even though I was thriving with the work I was doing, the work became taxing after a while because it was lighting me up, but it was also taking from a really empty space within me. I was not refilling myself. I was battling a lot during that year, actually. And I know, most of you will resonate because you're watching this and you're attracted to me. I was doing a lot of spiritual work. It was like because I'd lived abroad so long, it's like this thing that I needed to work on, all this ancestral lineage stuff that I was carrying, especially from my maternal lineage. When I was over on the other side of the world living my best life, that had no chance of resurfacing. When I came back, I got to sit with that. I got to sit with the pain and grief of my great grandmother came through for me to process. I had so many things with my lineage coming up during that dark night of the soul here in the darkness in Sweden, in the apartment, that I had to move through and work through. It was a lot. It was a lot for me to go through. It was a really hard year. And so by when spring came around, I was like, okay, I cannot do the city. I cannot do this to myself. I need to get out into countryside. And so I rented a little summer house by the ocean. And that was exactly what my soul and body and heart needed. I had the best summer. I decided to take no clients. And remember, at this point, I was basically trading time for money. So if I wasn't attending the birth portal, if I wasn't serving women and their families with my time, um, I wasn't earning money. I had my business at that point was still just a side project that for the first few years, I barely showed up online. I self-sabotaged a lot. I had a lot of imposter syndrome. I didn't show up on my social media showing my face or showing who I was. I wasn't showing up. And that reflected in my ability to earn and grow my online business, of course, because that goes hand in hand. And, I was maybe earning around $1,000 a month on my online courses, and sometimes, less than that, and, the odd occasion more than that. But that was kind of what I was earning. It wasn't a lot at all, and was nothing I could live from. So during that summer, I think I took 3, maybe even 4 months without taking clients. And by the end of that summer, I had loved and nourished myself in the forest by the ocean, but I had not progressed in my online activity. I was doing the same old thing, hiding and not stepping into my business and owning it. Um, and I didn't take any clients. So I was teetering of almost having no savings left, literally. And as the autumn was approaching and I was supposed to take on clients again, my whole system said, no, you're not ready. I still need to rest. I still need to, I need this time to just be on the land, find my home, because I still was renting, right? Still, in that vacuum in between place that's so hard to be in. And it's hard to find the deep nourishment you need from that in between space that we are in sometimes as something is dying and something new is being born. It's a hard place to be, and especially then if you don't have the foundation of like a solid home, a solid community, a solid, place on earth, like your root chakra is just like, rah, what the fuck? So I just felt this massive resistance. I wasn't ready to take on clients. I wasn't ready to serve other people. I had to first serve myself and find that place here that I needed. Um, so I knew it just, I don't know how it happened, but it just came to me fully, bam, that I realized my problem with not being able to take the time off that I needed and just not go back into the birth portal, to serve myself first and rest and nourish myself and my nervous system. I realized it was because I wasn't fully stepping into my birth business online. It had been at that point around 3 years or something, and I was not showing up for my business. I was treating it, I was half-assing it, to be honest. So I looked at myself and went, why? And of course, as I've just mentioned, massive imposter syndrome, massive witch wound, just fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of like if I just half-ass it, if I don't fully show up, then also I can't really fail. Like it's not my fault that it's not working because, obviously I'm not fully stepping into it. And so it was this justification process, not conscious, but when I was looking at it, I realized that's what I was doing. If I didn't show up for my business, then I couldn't fully fail. Like it wasn't my fault that it failed or it didn't like really kick off or whatever, because I wasn't giving it what it needed. And then I also realized I had also a fear of success because if I succeeded, I would be more visible, which is really scary, which really triggered my sisterhood wound and my witch wound and my imposter syndrome and my fear of being judged and not fitting in and not being liked and all of this. And it also was a fear of success money-wise. Like at that point, I was scared of earning too much money because I didn't really understand how to hold that. My container, my actual self, I didn't know if I could hold more money. I had resistance, I had fear, I had, oh, well, if I earn more, I have to pay more taxes, and I don't really know how that works, and then I have to learn that, or, just excuses, to be honest, but just also like legitimate fears of like, what if I did earn more money? Like, what would that look like? And yeah, fill in the blank. So a lot of different things was holding me back, which I know holds most of us back. And if you're listening to this and you feel like you're half-assing it in your birth business, and you go like, yeah, okay, I also have fear of failure and fear of success and fear of being judged and imposter syndrome and all of these things, like that is the crux when it comes to like business. Business is the biggest self-development journey you'll ever do. It brings up all your inner demons, all your fears, and you have to face them, work with them, be with them, move with them, and find strategies and tools and ways. And also, you're doing the inner work to move through that and find something in your business. Like, make sure that your business is fully soul aligned and that your business is like your purpose and your desire to serve is bigger than your fears. And that's what I did. That was where I ended up going. So I said to myself, I know I need rest. I want to take a full year off being in the birth portal and I want to focus on my business, my online business. I want this online business to, whether or not I am attending births, carry me, support me. And if I want, when I want to take on clients, that's just a bonus because I love the work I'm doing, not because I need to earn money. So I wanted to kind of burnout proof my business, right? I wanted to be able to, if I wanted to take time off, I could. If I needed, because I was sick, I could. If I needed to care for my family, whatever it was, like take time off from attending the birth portal and serving women in real time, trading time for money, I could. That was the clear message from that year of just the dark night of the soul and still serving other people and just depleting myself fully to the point where I was then not being able to physically, like I just had this massive resistance. I can't attend another birth. I need my own space. I need to serve me first. Like burnout. Like I was definitely in burnout mode during that summer, and it didn't, it wasn't enough. I needed more in the autumn. So I took my last savings, like literally, I was down to the last penny. I took my last savings and I paid for an online business course, a weekend business course for, 3,000 something, 500, $600, something like that. Um, and I was like, I'm gonna go for it. Let's go. And I did it. And it gave me the kick up the bum I needed. I did it, and I also was so ready for it. Like it was now or never. It was at a point where I was like, I told myself I'm going to give myself a year. If by the end of like full year, by the end of this full year, if I'm still earning $1,000 from my online business, of course I'm going to just get employment. Because the beauty of employment, even though I feel like my soul is trapped being employed and I don't, it's not what I want with my life. I've always almost been self-employed, as you've heard if you listen to the previous episodes. But I was like, the beauty of being employed though is that you're getting this amount of money every week or month or whatever, how you ever getting paid. And there's a rest in that. There's like a release in that of knowing that money's coming in and you can pay your bills and live your life. But it's for me at a big cost of my heart, soul, creativity, just what I'm here to do. But I told myself, if this doesn't work out, I'm just going to get an employment next year, like, because obviously I need that for my nervous system at this point in time. Being on call didn't work for me at that point, even though I loved what I was doing. Don't get me wrong, I still also love being in the birth portal, serving women and their families, being a birth worker. There's nothing more magical, but this is where I also know so many midwives and doulas and birth workers end up is like constantly hitting that burnout threshold and going, oof, okay, I need a break, unpaid for a while to get back on track, or I am going to have half a year and a year unemployment before I can come back and serve because we're terrible at the balance. And this is what I hope this also podcast is going to inspire you to do, just like me, go online. Have both, have a hybrid birth business model that serves you throughout all the seasons of your life. When you want to take maternity leave, when you need or want to take time off, you can, and you still get to earn money, income that supports you and your family. Anyway, I'm digressing. So I just had this massive, just strong sort of energy going like, yes, I'm going to fully commit. I'm ready. And I did. I fully committed. I did that weekend course. I spent the next month putting in the strategies and the planning structure and everything that I learned. Um, at that point, it was still focused towards the natural birth course and the nursing postpartum course and my online village. And then I went to Thailand that November for a whole month with my best friend with the intention to just work on my online business, to get really clear on my visions, on my goal, on my values, on my business foundation, business plan. And that really shifted everything. I really focused. I did the business course, I think it was the first weekend of October or something. And then I went to Thailand in November. Then I came home for the holidays. And then I went um, to Australia. But before here, something happened. And this is the thing. When you just follow the momentum, you follow your heart, you follow, your gut feeling, your intuition, which is so important as women because we know, you know that you know that you know. Like we know, third eye, heart, womb, like we are connected. We are the channel between the heavens and the earth. We know shit. And when you follow that, magic happens. Life opens up to you. And so when I fully stepped into my power, if I stepped into my business, I said yes to my business, I said yes to myself, things happened. And so during the time I was from October and November, during those months there, I had three different people ask me. if I ran a doula training, birth worker training. And I had not thought about that as an option at all. And I mean, that's really big, isn't it? Creating your own training. But when the third person asked me, I was like, okay, something's being called to be created here. And so I put it out to my social media and I asked, I've been getting this request. Would anyone be interested in me creating like a birth worker training? And I got a lot of positive responses saying, yes, super interested. And I started collecting a list of interest, an interest list. And I got maybe 20 or 30 during that time I was posting just that story, really. And I was like, whoa, okay, there is interest here for this. And so I decided to follow that feeling of going, wow, okay, there's momentum here. And this is also something that I really love. And so I started opening up to, receiving what that could look like. And I realized this was marrying everything that I'd ever done. Because the birth worker training I was going to create, obviously, because I am me and my unique gifts to the world is sacred space holding, holding ceremony, holding women's work. Um, you know, I brought everything into this training. I took my yoga, meditation, mindfulness, that I brought in. I took all my women's work, feminine leadership in and created obviously also then all my midwifery knowledge, really in depth about everything from conception, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, the medicalized birth world and birth advocacy, all of it, and baked it into a 6 months long mentorship, very deep and intense, and not like any other birth worker training out there. It's somewhere in between a doula training and a midwifery training, but then it's totally its own thing. It's not even close to any of those two. It's its own thing. And throughout it all, it's infused with this spiritual, sacred lens. It's all about woman being sovereign, both us as birth workers. So, the first 2 months of my mentorship is all about cultivating yourself as the sacred space holder and channel for yourself and for other people in your life, and ultimately as the space holder for the birth portal and for women going through this rite of passage. It really goes into the beginning, like, your birth imprint and how that has affected you as a birth worker, and your red thread, your maternal birthing wisdom lineage, your epigenetics, transgenerational trauma, how that's affecting you, your own experiences of your rite of passage as your first bleed, if you've birthed babies, if you've gone through menopause. Um, we're really diving into your relationship to authority, your throat chakra, your voice, your expression in this world. We go through also your own relationship to your body, your cervix, your breasts, your belly, your whole beautiful body temple, your sexuality, sensuality, being with that within yourself, but also how can you be with a woman in birth who sounds very sexual? How can you be comfortable with that fully and hold space for that if you're not comfortable within your own sexuality? We're going through that. We go through the relationship to yourself as a part of nature, cyclic being. We go into our monthly bleed and how we relate to that as women, how we relate to being women in this world. It's huge. It's 2 months of deep inner work, unraveling yourself, and then bringing that work that I have, this body of work that I've done for years, for over a decade, I bring into this so that the women who are becoming sacred birth workers can bring this to their communities, weave into the women that they work with, the way that they can then approach the first conversation with a new client and really delve into things that potentially can come up in the birth process or as she's going through being pregnant, preparing to become a mother. This matters. It matters the way you birth, the way you mother, the way you are a woman in the world, and the way you either claim your sovereignty as a woman or not. So I created a totally different mentorship, birth worker mentorship than currently then existed. And I did it all first in a vision form. So I downloaded this vision. I knew I was marrying everything that I had learned from the age of 14 sitting in women's circles. I brought it all together, all the knowledge and the wisdom and the lived experience that I had collected throughout all my years into this one big high ticket offering, all online. It was all coming together because I fully committed to my business in September and said, I'm going to give it a year and I'm going to fully commit. I had no idea that meant I would eventually, a few months later, be announcing this new birth worker training. At that time, I called it the Spiritual Midwife Program because I was called a spiritual midwife. I was still registered as a midwife. And that was my working name because I didn't know what it was going to be called. Today, of course, it's called the Sacred Birth Worker Mentorship. And I'm currently, at the moment of speaking right now, in the middle of my fourth cohort, planning to start the next round in January 2026, my fifth round. Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, I'm amazed about the story, and I'm so also like inspired to share it with you because, again, like you, as you have listened to the last couple of episodes, there's nothing special about me, but something shifted, and I fully committed to myself and my business, and that's when I leveled up. And that's what you need to hear. That's how we level up. We can't half-ass it. Nothing's going to come from half-assing it. You need to be a full body, yes, I am going to commit and I'm going to face my fears and my bullshit and my inner demons and my imposter syndrome and fill in the blank. So I put up my vision sometime in February, I think it was, and did a early bird price for March, full price in April, and I started the mentorship in May. And I got 7 students for my first round, 7 mentees, some of which are still very active in the sacred birth worker community, some who are, now a part of holding space within my village, some who have become my closest friends, soul sisters in this world. Quite amazing what happens when you follow your dream and show up for it. I didn't even know it was my dream. Fabulous, absolutely fabulous. So I started in May and I obviously sold all these places in the mentorship without having a product, without having actually this mentorship done. And that's how I think you should always do it in business. You should first see, is there interest for this thing that I'm thinking I want to do? Am I going to get clients for this? Or is it just a heart project that actually maybe doesn't fly right now? Maybe it's just not the right time, or your messaging is not correct. It's not speaking to your soul line client. Um, Obviously, my vision did. What I channeled down and when I brought into this vision spoke to these 7 women who decided to pay for me to create it with them. And I did. So I created a few weeks ahead of content. I didn't even know what I was creating. I had a vision. I didn't know what was happening the next week or the next week. It just kind of all unfolded, which is so fantastic. And so I created it with the women. It was so amazing. It was so deep. It was so cool to see what was coming out as I was doing that each week. And it took me probably about 7 or 8 months to create the 6 months content with them because I started maybe a month before they started to start doing some of the content and prepping it. And here we are now. As I said, currently my 4th cohort. Um, and I'm taking on somewhere between 13 and 15 mentees at a time. I've steadily increased my prices as I've been able to hold more. And I also, through this, actually, after the first cohort, I knew I wanted to create a business course for birth workers because I obviously had learned so much during my year of actually committing to my business, doing the inner work, and learning some really pivotal strategies and tools and structure that helped me scale and helped me be able to create what I created. And so I knew I wanted to create a business course for my mentees because I wanted them to succeed. I wanted them to have thriving birth businesses. I wanted them to already from the beginning have a hybrid kind of model of birth business. I didn't want them to just go out and take on clients in the real life and then end up where I ended up. I wanted them to have the foundation that I had now. And that brewed for about a year because, again, like birthing this mentorship was huge. And even though I knew in November, as we were wrapping up the first cohort, that I was going to create this business course, it took me a whole year to come to the point where I was like, okay, now I'm ready to create something new because it's huge to birth something new. And continuing to then also like see, is it going to work next time? Is the second cohort going to fill? Was it just like, oh, the first time, and then everyone's going to be like, oh, I'm not interested. But no, it kept on going and kept on working, kept on filling up groups, which is amazing. And so after one full year, again, coming to November, I decided it was time. And I announced to my mentees that I am going to create a business course and you're going to get this really amazing special deal in November, which is kind of like the, the Black Friday deals everywhere, right? I'm like, I'm giving you an amazing deal to see, are you interested? Because if you're interested, I'm going to create this for you. And I got, I think 15 or something sign up for that really, really super early bird just for my mentees and my email list. Um, and then I knew, okay, I have a group. I think I had, before I actually started creating the course, I think I had already earned 16,000. How much did I earn? Yeah, 16,000 must be what I earned before I created my business course because I already had people that trusted me, that I would create something that was of value and they'd seen my journey. They were my students already, most of them. And so they paid me upfront. I ended up having 20 or I had 21 women sign up. One dropped out, but I had 20 women show up for the business course. And I created it again with them. I think I created 1 or 2 weeks before we started, and then it was 1 week ahead, of them for the 5 week intensive portal. And again, I was doing something on the fly, following my intuition, knowing I wanted to create this, knowing I knew everything. I didn't know I would deliver it. Because obviously, it's not like I've studied to become a business coach. I've learned through trial and error. If you listen to the last 2 episodes, you know that I started out, my first business. I mean, my first was just like doing massage and just on the side doing things for money when I was younger. And I didn't say that, but I created my own tinctures and teas and herb medicines and balms and all of these things. And I did do some things on the side before I actually started my first kind of official business, which was the Organic Day Spa, my second business, the yoga house, and then essentially being a nomadic workshop leader, a soul trader in a sense of just, me traveling the world doing what I loved. So I obviously have a journey of trial and error in business before I started a spiritual midwife, which then changed that year when I started what's now known as the Sacred Birthworker Mentorship. I also decided to deregister as a midwife, to let go of my registration, to step out. Obviously, I am a midwife, but I can't officially call myself a midwife because in some countries where I held my registration, for example, in Australia, it's a criminal offense to say that I'm a midwife if I don't hold a registration and am bound to this institution checking me and correcting me and punishing me if I go out of line. So to protect myself, I called myself the spiritual midwitch. I changed my name but in the middle of that year. And that was a huge process. I still grieve not calling myself a midwife. To myself, of course, I'm always a midwife. I am a midwife. No one can take that away from me, but I couldn't call myself that anymore. And to not change too much, I just called myself a midwitch. The people who were following me kind of, it wasn't a big jump from the spiritual midwife to midwitch, spiritual midwitch. Um, but and it's a little bit rebellious. Um, which obviously has so there's so much thoughts and feelings, and everyone has a different idea about what that means. To me, truly, I just see it as wise woman. I just, witch. Um, Back in the day, to me, was the midwife, the ones who knew about the cycles of the earth and seasons and herbs and healing, who attended the death portal and the birth portal and all the rites of passages in her village. And so that's kind of what I feel that Midwitch stands for me. I don't resonate with it as I do with Midwife. I don't have the same love for that name. It's just a name for now. And I'm slowly moving away from it and just claiming my own birth name, Anna Lundqvist, and being the founder of Sacred Birth International. And that's where I ended up. I think I changed to Sacred Birth International, both my website and my social media name, and kind of what I then like wanted to present um, around 2024, 23, 24, that, or was it, no, 24, 25, sorry. um, which has been almost, we're in September now. So yeah, 9, 10 months ago, I was ready. I felt that I was ready to expand. I was expanding in myself, how much money I could hold, how many people I could serve, how I could structure my business. Um, I could rest in that what I had created was really epic and really awesome. I just got raving reviews from all my graduates from the Secret Birthwork and Mentorship. Throughout the mentorship, the depth that everyone went to, um, just that what I had created was just so, I was so proud of it. I am so proud of it. It's so well received. It's spreading across the world. People are now knowing what the sacred birth worker mentorship is, what a sacred birth worker is, which is just absolutely incredible. And I have beautiful sacred birth worker graduates all over the world, Canada, US, South America, South Africa, Europe, the UK, over in Australia, New Zealand. It's fabulous. We're taking over the world in the most positive way, which just fills my heart because my vision is to be one small part of the great new earth, birth rebellion as I see it. We are creating the new earth, birth culture. We're taking back what was lost. We are walking alongside women and ourselves, stepping into sovereignty, not just in the birth world, but just as women, as feminine leaders. That is so desperately needed in our time. And I'm so proud that I get to be a part of that for so many women's lives. First, my mentees, but then the women they serve, which is fabulous. Actually, I never thought about that before, but yeah, it's so cool. Um, and anyways, back to the business course for birth workers. I knew it was time. I created with them. That was also just a blast. So that was this year in March, April that I ran that. And that was just incredible. 20 birth workers coming together. The vibes were so high. The energy was pumping. Each Friday, we met for our Friday business live during those 5 weeks in that intensive portal. And they got so much done, which was my intention all along. Again, my business course looks different from what I've experienced. I've taken a few now. I took one, obviously, when I created the online course. Then I took the one that I when I committed to my business. And then 2024, I paid 5,000, yes, $5,000 for another business course container. And I realized in that one, okay, I know what I need to know. Actually, I didn't need that. And that was really good confirmation. It was an expensive confirmation, but I knew that I knew what I needed to know. What I realized then was I actually needed to expand my business. So that's also what happened in the cusp of 2024, 25. So this year, I've become an employer and I've employed a virtual assistant. I've also outsourced with an agency that has, um, that helps with a lot of different aspects of business. And so that's been this year's big expansion of Sacred Birth International is, launching the business course, also employing people to help me with my business. And now I'm just about to run my second business course. It starts on the 29th of September. It goes for all of October, and I can't wait to dive on into that container again. So as I kind of mentioned, my business course looks very different from the ones I've experienced. Both the ones that have been given by men and women, because I've done both, um, have all been quite masculine, and it's been a lot of kind of that hustle and grind energy, um, and hasn't at all had a feminine lens of what it is like to be a businesswoman that bleeds, that's cyclic, or that goes through the seasons of motherhood, or, fill in the blank. We are very different. Women are like the moon, men are like the sun. They have, this testosterone every 2 hours coming through their system, and our hormone cycle is during a full month. And so planning your business and your life and the birth work according to your cycles, I think, is paramount, and something I teach in my business course, how to weave that in, to have the masculine structure and foundation, which is amazing, but to also then have the feminine flow and the feminine way of approaching that structure and planning ahead for your cycle, and how to weave that in. I bring in, of course, feminine leadership. I bring in, of course, so much self-development stuff and mindset, money mindset, how to actually expand so you can hold more money in your business. Otherwise, you'll never attract more clients or be able to succeed in any endeavor if you are holding unconscious, subconscious money beliefs that maybe you're not worthy of that, or money is hard to come by, or, fill in the blank, all these things that we have been programmed with, most of us, as young children and adults, and throughout our life, really. It's kind of the culture, isn't it? Um, yes, and then I help my beautiful business students find their offerings, both low ticket, medium ticket, and high ticket, to find their thing, like I've done. So I help brainstorm that with you, and like find your thing in the world that will light you up, that you will always love to do. And I help you create it. I help you with all the tech stuff as well. And because I know I had that, I had a big block first of like, I've got all the tech and I have to get all the things and do all the things. And I help with that. And yeah, I think one of the most important things too is to realize that selling is in service. You're being in service when you are selling. That's also something that we hold so much judgment and shame around. That's something ugly and being salesy, something dirty, because we have that image of that salesperson coming to around your house wanting to sell a vacuum or whatever, or those who cold call and wants to sell you something. When you do selling from integrity, when you're offering a service to the world that you know is from your heart, it's your purpose, it's going to help people, that's being of service. And that's a big focus of my business course, of reframing that and learning how to do it in a way that feels beautiful and in alignment and true to you and in service and heartfelt marketing and selling. So, anyways, that's my journey. Um, Thank you for being with me throughout these 3 episodes, listening to my full journey. And I hope that now you have more of a picture where I'm coming from. Going forward, I am going to bring in and weave, as I mentioned in the first episode, how to step into your calling as a birth worker, for you who are here to be inspired for that, and to how to step into your power and purpose as a businesswoman in the birth world, if that's why you're here. I was so surprised when I created the business course for birth workers, how much I absolutely loved it. After I committed to my business, now business, earning money, looking at my bank account, all of this is fun. It lights me up. It's exciting. And I'm so excited to help other women in business feel this way, because I know how it felt before that. And it should be exciting. Business should be a sacred endeavor for yourself and for the world. And I'm here to reframe that for you. If you are someone who maybe like me had a lot of, or have a lot of negative feelings around business, earning money, selling, and all of these things. So welcome to the Midwitch Cottage, where I will invite you into my home, into my life, into the way I do business, how I step into feminine leadership within my life and in my business and in the birth world, and how I embody being a sacred birth worker throughout my days in my world. Thanks for being here. I'd love to hear if you have loved this series, what your takeaways are. I'd love to hear in the comments in your favorite podcast app or on YouTube, or go over to Sacred Birth International on Instagram to give me feedback on this series. I'd love to know if you also are suffering from the witch wound, the sisterhood wound, the imposter syndrome, all of the things I've mentioned. Please give me some feedback. It means the world to me when you do. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. If you love this podcast, then please share the love on your podcast app by leaving a comment, or pop over to our Instagram at Sacred Birth International. I'd love to connect there. If you'd like to know more about the Sacred Birth Worker Mentorship or the business course for birth workers, then head on over to sacredbirthinternational.com to learn more. Thank you for listening.